Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the World Championship Series here in Austin, Texas. The barbecue's been great, the games have been great, and now it is time to crown a champion. We have our first quarterfinal coming up in just a few moments' time. I'm Nathanius, joined once again by Rotterdam and Fear Dragon as we prepare to kick off HeRoMaRinE versus Serral, and we've dove into this match a fair bit. HeRoMaRinE, no matter what he's accomplished, no matter how good or handsome we know he is still a stark underdog to Serral, who has just been the, as you just put it, Kev, the guy that's made things unfair for everybody else in Europe. He's just too good at the video game.
Yeah, so Serral has been a monster, but there is a little bit of hope for HeRoMaRinE to put out of numbers as well. For instance, in Challenger, he also played against Nurcho, one of the best Zergs, someone else that we're going to see later today who's in the top 8. He took out Nurcho, and just last week, I actually cast in an online tournament as well, where he went up against Raynor, and I think everyone is so pumped already for WCS Valencia, because that is the tournament, Nate, where Raynor is finally old enough to play. He will be eligible to join the WCS Circuit. Raynor is one of the best Zergs in Europe at only 15 years old, and even though Raynor took a 3-0 lead over HeRoMaRinE, HeRoMaRinE got everything together and he turned that around. He won 4-3 against Raynor. Now Raynor may not be Serral, but Raynor is also really, really freaking good. And once again, you guys want to be hyped for Valencia because it's so cool to see him join us as well. So there is hope. HeRoMaRinE is obviously good in this matchup. He said it on stage as well, right? He's like, I actually think I can do even better than I did in Challenger. But no matter how we twist it, he's still the underdog.
All right, I'll hear from you in a sec, Ravi. We do have the players on stage ready to be introduced. Smix, it seems that you are ready to kick off our final day here at WCS Austin.
That is correct, Nathanius. It is time for our first match. Austin, are you guys ready? Let's go ahead and bring them out. We have the 2016 WCS Summer semifinalist fighting to take down the current reigning WCS champion and tournament favorite. Please welcome on stage, it is HeRoMaRinE and Serral.
As the players make their way over to the booths to prepare for this showdown, Serral looking so damn good as usual. The Leipzig champion. He's got that red color scheme going that says, I am the bad guy. It is everybody versus me. I am not supposed to lose. In HeRoMaRinE, well, he did his hair real nice this morning. He's looking like he's ready for that interview on stage, Fear Dragon, if he gets this one.
I mean, the nice thing is also that you have to remember Serral just came off of beating Kelazor in the round of 16, who was another Terran player. So HeRoMaRinE got to kind of see Obi-Wan Kenobi, got struck down by the good old Sith Lord, and now he gets to sort of see, okay, maybe what I can kind of formulate some sort of plan here.
Okay, sorry, the Twitch chat voting just...
I think they're miming us.
Roddy pointed, it's like 90% HeRoMaRinE. I'm like, all right, guys, get your hashtag Serrals in there.
But what if they're right? How stupid would we all look over here now?
No, HeRoMaRinE has more Twitch subscribers than Serral, so that determines everything, guys.
I mean, who's more right? A couple of GMs or thousands of GMs in the Twitch chat? I think I know the answer. Maybe they are the true experts.
That's a fair point.
You know, there is one thing though. The funny thing is that obviously Serral hasn't dropped the map so far in this tournament. He went 2-0, 2-0 in his group stage, and then he took out Kelazor 3-0. So he's 7-0, and that's obviously fantastic, and that's a lot of momentum. But often when you win that many games in a row, when you finally lose one, then it's always a little bit harder to take. Like if you have a bumpy ride where it's like back and forth, you don't get shaken up anymore if you go down 0-1 because you're like, been there, done that before. But he's so used to winning that maybe if HeRoMaRinE can squeeze out a lead in this series, there is a chance that even Serral could potentially get a little nervous because he's like, I'm not familiar with these emotions. Like, why am I behind in this series, you know?
The thing that scares me about you bringing up the match against Kelazor, though, is that I feel like that series, we really didn't see Serral push to the limit. He punished Kelazor for most of the cheeky things he tried. The build on Catalyst just flopped, and he counterattacked and killed him. The Nidus play, it's like we didn't, it
was only game 3 that was really standard.
Yeah, so I'm worried because I'm like, HeRoMaRinE doesn't have a whole lot to go off here, but we do have the match ready, so we're going to get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for HeRoMaRinE versus Serral.
Finland up against Germany here in this match. HeRoMaRinE up against Serral. A great way to kick off our final day of WCS Austin with some Zerg versus Terran action.
Watching the best of the best be challenged by everybody else. I'm in for that storyline. I like it.
All right, here we go. The first map is going to be Lost and Found, and down here in the bottom left-hand side in the blue, he is Serral. And up here in the top right-hand side, representing Mouse Sports, the red Terran player. He is HeRoMaRinE.
One of the things the guys that has touched on in the WCS Challenger leading up to this, Serral did only drop the one map, and it was the HeRoMaRinE. And then what Ravi kind of touched on that I did like a lot, that the rest of the games were pretty good as well. They did go back and forth a little bit. HeRoMaRinE made a couple of pushes down the middle of the map that looked really promising. And it kind of took that Serral engagement, that perfect coming in from multiple angles, microing it really well, great composition to defeat that and hold off HeRoMaRinE. So when they say HeRoMaRinE has a chance, we're not doing that caster thing where we're like, everybody's got a chance. Anybody can beat Serral. No. Not everybody. Even at the end of this tournament, there's a few guys that's like, it's like 5% chance they can beat him. HeRoMaRinE, we put it like a 15 to 20. It's double digits, man.
He's absolutely double digits. You know, I might even go 25-30. HeRoMaRinE has shown some great games. I think the scary thing is that this is a best of 5. You know, it's 3 games you've got to string together. I have absolute faith in HeRoMaRinE stringing 1 or 2. He even said there, we saw it on the ticker, of course, Wax interviewing him beforehand, and he said, I think I can win 2 games, but I'm not sure if I can string together the whole series. And I think that's a very realistic evaluation of what we expect. But you know what? When you're down here, when the pressure's on, you're in this high pressure situation, anything can happen. The big threat, though, is these Zerglings right now. Serral has been mixing up his openings, and he's actually snuck 6 Zerglings across the map very early. There's no Marine. It was straight into the reactor. No SCV scout. And he wants to delay this command center. This is going to be very frustrating for HeRoMaRinE to deal with.
My God, he almost got up there. And he could get the reactor as well. In fact, I think he will. So instead of being greedy and just absolutely going for the command center cancellation, he's going to go for the reactor, which stopped everything in the opening.
It's going to go down. You can't repair that while it's still under construction. And, of course, going to go for a depot as well. With the Reaper coming back, he should be able to save that depot. If he loses the depot, that'd be a disaster. SCVs, though, have to pull off the line. The depot's going to go down, and he's supply blocked as well. The command center still has not started rebuilding. And Serral, even looking for the SCV kills, grabs one of those.
2.
Wow.
2 in total. And get some good scouting into the base there. As Pig pointed out, the base, the command center just now getting restarted. 6 links for that. Fantastic. Oftentimes you'll see Terran players leave the Reaper back at home for precisely this move. And you're going to hear this a lot. I'm sorry, audience. If you're tired of hearing how good Serral is, you're probably watching the wrong broadcast. But when you're this good, a lot of times the things you do to be safe against other players, you chuck it. You say, I'm throwing this Reaper over there. I want to see what he's doing. I maybe get a little bit of damage in because he's so good. I can't play defensive. I can't play safe. I got to take risks. And in this case, Serral is able to pounce on it.
Yeah, this is definitely what makes Serral so dangerous. I think, you know, if Serral's predictable, HeRoMaRinE can take this series, but Serral, this tournament, more than any other, has evolved. He's gone from that guy who just wants to play the same way into this almost perfect late game, into a guy who's going to throw a few different pressures at you, a few extra counterattacks and pieces of aggression. There's a lot more variance, and that makes it hard for HeRoMaRinE to guess and assume what's coming his way. He's starting off this game at a bit of a deficit. He's going into the Banshees, the 3rd command center in the wall. Overlord will spot all of that, though. It's going to see that tech lab upgrading. It sees the bubbles popping out of that green add-on. That tells him Cloak's coming.
You know, one of the things I really love, just to kind of take it aside, I love about StarCraft, we've had dominant players in the past, and they haven't always been dominant in the way that we're seeing Serral, where it's like, they're good at doing everything, they're a meticulous engager, that kind of thing. StarCraft, you get to see players express themselves in a different way. We've seen incredible macro players and like innovation in some of these guys where they just throw out more units, micro. And then in some cases we see like mechanics with engagements and just decision making. I love that we get to see kind of different players shine in different ways in this game.
Yeah, it's actually something where you can express yourself in so many different ways, and HeRoMaRinE definitely going to have his work cut out for him here. The creep already starting to blossom on this map. Now, this is where a lot of the momentum comes into this matchup. If that creep spread for Zerg can get out past a certain point, you've got so many different lanes to cover. The Terran can't really slow it down. We see here an attempt to pressure into the main. Doesn't really find any damage. And that creep, if it starts to spread out here, that's going to get out of control.
And it will. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. These lanes are going to jump on top of them, on top of that creep, and chase them away. I'm a little bit questioning HeRoMaRinE. He went with the Cloaked Banshee despite it getting scouted at the very early stages. I'm not even talking about the Overlord literally seeing the upgrade. I mean, the starport was spotted before it finished. I guess you can play the double mind game where you're like, maybe he thinks I canceled it, but you know, it's not the end of the world. Cloak Banshees still have a purpose.
Yeah.
Still a little bit of an investment off of a bad start already, so it's a little bit kind of compounding on the bad.
Yeah, I got to agree there. You got to look for edges wherever you can find them. For now, HeRoMaRinE kind of going back to a very typical game. He's going Stim. Engineering Bay is going to take the third. So it's going to be a big sort of mid to late game macro style from the Terran. And unfortunately, those Hellions get surrounded. They go down. That means the creep is going to be unimpeded. These Banshees, the only pressure on the map for HeRoMaRinE right now. And the Queens and the Overseer are there guarding it. And this is what we're talking about. That creep not only gives a bonus to movement speed, it also gives vision. And when you get it out far enough, especially against these fragile bio composition, the Ling Bane is going to be able to close the distance so quickly, and it makes the Zerg's defensive power just amplified.
Look at these upgrades we have here too. We have Overlord speed actually getting started. Baneling speed did finish, and then it's melee upgrades, which I think is really interesting because a lot of times you will see range upgrades for this Hydra and perhaps Lurker or something like that, but in this case, it's going to be melee, which is really, really strong. We've seen that kind of be the backbone of Serral's playstyle. He obviously uses Hydras to do a lot of the damage, kind of the stand down damage, if you will. But it's a lot of times the Ling counterattacks, the Baneling harass, and then the multi-prong Baneling attacks that really clean up these forces. It's kind of cool to see it in action.
Yeah, and with Hydras backing that up, creep spread going to give a lot of mobility to this army, going to allow him to collapse on a lot of positions. Already looking towards a fifth base is Serral. HeRoMaRinE needs to start getting some work done. The Marines pushing forwards. They're going to start to clear up a few creep tumors. The Zerglings and Queens are heading forwards. They don't want to go too far out there.
All right, HeRoMaRinE doing the dance of death here, back and forth, just trying to stop these Queens from tumoring, if you will, the territory and pushing it forward, but he was going to be able to do that. Now, one of the things to kind of keep your eye on here for HeRoMaRinE in particular is he's got to watch for these Ling counterattacks. They haven't started happening yet, but Serral is absolutely consistent about that. He always will. In fact, when you're attacking, oftentimes it's when he's attacking you, and he really pushes you to make those decisions, but also be a mechanical player somewhat on his level, and that's part of the reason why he's separated himself from everybody else.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest ways to really force your opponent to play immensely well and to start forcing mistakes out of them. In this matchup, more than any other, the Terran units are fragile. These bio units, they need to spread against the Banelings. And just as I say it,
no!
Oh my gosh. A lot of Marines go down there. Banshees taking some damage out in the middle. Does manage to evacuate the Marines, and the Banshees do take down a Queen. HeRoMaRinE desperately trying to keep this creep back, but it is a desperate battle. There is so many creep tumors.
Yeah, I'm glad you've been talking about this because it's actually getting ridiculous. And this is kind of what happens in that opening. When you have the Ling attack that happened earlier, you're not getting the Hellions out as early, you're not as comfortable there. The Banshee opening kind of doubles down on that. And all of a sudden, half this map is covered. And here we go with the Lings starting to kind of work on this wall. They're not going to get through there now, but they'll come a scratching later. And Serral's going to circle around over here, and he could grab a couple of tanks for himself too if he does decide to go this route. But he's holding off for now.
Really fascinating change up here with the recent patch. The Marauders do a bit more damage. HeRoMaRinE going straight to 8 barracks. He wants to get a high Marauder count up for his late game rather than rushing up to Liberators or more tanks. Very cool adjustment, and something where previously Terran players would get countered by the Vipers coming out at Hive Tech. They'd stop the siege tanks with the Blinding Cloud. This army is going to be a little bit more solid once he gets those Marauders out. For now, though, Serral just posturing. He's looking for an angle, and HeRoMaRinE is just kind of camped in on 3 bases. It's going to be hard for him to even get a 4th base up.
I think, does Serral have 6 o'clock and is also taking the top left? Yes. So he's pushing to 6 bases before the Terrans even posturing to take a 4th.
That's such powerful play from Serral. Pushing ahead in so many regards. You know, he plays flexibly, he adjusts.
Look at the Hive timing with his melee upgrades, by the way. The Hive's going to finish a few seconds before melee, and he's going to go up to 3-3. He's just a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, pushing his edges more and more. I mean, that's the real strength of a top-level player, is when they get ahead, they get further and further ahead. They start taking even more liberties, knowing they've got the room in this game. And, I mean, look at this. HeRoMaRinE only now moving out onto the map with his main army. His 2-2 is not quite done. Serral's is ready. A huge counterattack towards the Natural, going to swing in at the same time. The depots aren't raised.
And the Banelings are actually going to make their way over to that 3rd, which does have the depot wall, and he's going to have to raise that. Or Lord, excuse me, as it were, and he is able to do that, so the Banelings are actually just going to park themselves over there. So much damage being done, 16 SCVs dying, and here's the real damage, Pig. The army has to come back. It's already been 10 minutes, pushing 11, and HeRoMaRinE still hasn't been out on that map where Serral is just having his way on the bases.
And you talked about the base count before. Serral up at 6 bases. He's got 85 workers in a massive economy. Here comes a huge flank from both sides. Not that many banelings in here, but the siege tanks all exposed at the front. They go down. Serral evacuates his fragile Hydralisks. He's just going to make more and more banelings. And without the siege tanks, how are you going to deal with that? Pushing so deep on creep with pure Marine against mass baneling, that's not a good position for the Terran.
And a really underrated thing here too is Serral had the lings to make into banelings. That was a full-on 200 engagement. But here we go. Serral coming in from all angles. He's going to push in banelings on creep against Marines. Not a good matchup. And Serral is going to clean this one out. HeRoMaRinE, get out. Wow. That was his first push out, by the way. He's like, what's going on in the world of Serral? Oh my God.
Absolute just, momentum from the get-go, and he ran with it. If you go that Reaper straight into Reactor, it's a little bit of a risky opening. It's something you'll always see Terran players do when they feel they need to take an edge early. They say, you know what, I don't think he's going to get some Zerglings across the map, but losing the Reactor, losing the Depot, losing the build time on the command center, that all compounds, and we saw what happens when Serral has that much freedom in the early game. I don't think I've ever seen Serral play off that good a start, and normally he's hard to stop. There, it was just unstoppable. He was in control of that game from the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely stunning. And I love the mind game that you just kind of touched on there too, where it's like, okay, it's game one. I really want to cut this seemingly small corner, right? Like, it's not that big of a deal. There's only one thing he could do to really make this a problem, and then he does that one thing. And that's going to be the poison in the mindset of HeRoMaRinE for the rest of the series. He already went into this. We saw his interview yesterday with Smix where he's just like, maybe I could take a map or two, but I don't know if I can beat him. Then this kind of thing happens, and now he's confirming. He's like, oh no, this is just a bad draw. So, hey, good job, HeRoMaRinE, you got here, but he's reading my mind. He's inside my head.
Yeah, it's such a tough position there, of course. I'm sure HeRoMaRinE, he's a staunch competitor, and something which always impresses me about Gabe is his ability to kind of stabilize his mindset.
Okay.
I mean, not even stabilize. I feel like he just doesn't get that shaken in the first place. And this comes from growing up at Home Story Cup, growing up since he was like 14 competing on these big stages. So he doesn't really get shaken up after a loss like that.
A little bit of the product of the pro gaming scene, but ladies and gentlemen, here in this first best of 5 to kick off Championship Sunday, let's introduce the players. Lower right-hand side, the blue dominating Zerg from Finland. It's Serral. Finish him. I like it.
Looking focused as ever. Standing in his way, the German representative up here in the top left-hand side of Acid Plant. He has been a competitor for many years now, starting to come into his own. Can he come back in this series? In the red, in the top left, give it up for HeRoMaRinE.
Little fans in there, deservedly so. HeRoMaRinE been streaming quite a bit lately. He's a really funny guy, maybe despite himself, but he's always been around. I like what you touched on there, Pig. He's been a Home Story Cup, just a fixture in the European scene. Hopefully he can make a stand here. First game, it's a best of 5. It's a long series, so you can kind of, that is where you can kind of take the mental almost hiccup and just be like, all right, look, that was bad, but it doesn't mean that all games have to go that way. I can do better.
And if we think of the map picks, that was Serral's map pick, map 1. Map 2 here on Acid is HeRoMaRinE's. HeRoMaRinE's next map pick, if we get to map 4, is Redshift.
Okay.
So obviously that's a good Terran versus Zerg match. Whereas, Serral's kind of gone for very standard maps. Lost and Found is kind of our new overgrowth. The next one in this map series will be Catalyst. So another very straightforward map, and Dreamcatcher up last if we make it that far. So Serral wanted to avoid Darkness Sanctuary. That was his veto. He said, take out the variability of the Forspawn map. There's too many crazy things that can come out. HeRoMaRinE actually shut down 16-bit, which is the one with the free in-base expansion, the big macro map.
You see an adjustment already. Not going to do the reactor right away. Going to get a Marine out here, but still with the kind of aggressive Reaper, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not such a huge risk what he's doing here, especially with the Marines to the reactor.
This is a safer opening, but it changes up the timings quite a bit because you end up doing a barracks gas with this version rather than the gas first.
Okay.
So for the viewers out there, maybe a little bit more casual with those timings, what this changes is the Hellions are about 15, 20 seconds later. So the Terran's just not quite as in the Zerg's face with kind of sniping off creep tumors, potentially, hitting cyclone timings or anything like that. On the other hand, HeRoMaRinE will have a bit more minerals. He'll have the chance to go He's going to actually do a fast third CC off just one gas. Ooh, all right. Very economic opening here. And, you know, especially if you can hide that from Serral, that's really going to make it hard for Serral to keep up in that economy.
Had a little bit of a back and forth there with the Reaper kind of checking for that third base timing, seeing if it can find the drone and really disrupt that, but Serral being diligent about seeing when the Reaper does leave to not go ahead and also lose the drone. And when you produce at the kind of choke area at the top of the ramp like this, that Overlord is able to spot everything except the command center.
Yeah, doesn't see that. And it was funny, he kind of started a Hellion because he saw the Overlord coming in, canceled it, and then started 2 Hellions again. But I don't know if he actually squeezed anything in with those minerals in the meantime. Has now gone for the second gas, so I'm thinking just Hellion Banshee. Could be into Bio, could be into Mech. Funny kind of word on that. HeRoMaRiNE's one win against Serral in Challenger was with Bio. It was on Catalyst with some nice Marine tank push. Serral, though, on the other hand, I asked him this morning, and he said he thinks Mech is a lot harder to face off against. He actually thinks Bio a little bit simpler to dissect, and when you take into account the way he loves to counterattack while they're trying to push, he kind of stretches his opponent's multitasking. He gets situations like that big flank on the siege tanks last game. You can see why he is so comfortable against that more fragile Terran army.
I almost wonder if Mech is more about Serral making a mistake and like your opponent can be at a certain baseline skill and still win from there. Whereas with Bio, it becomes much more mechanical and you have to be a certain level of good to beat Serral with Bio. Like him making a bad engagement or a decision that then loses in the game is a lot less likely. I kind of wonder if that's how it plays out because to your point, the way he challenges his opponents when they do go Bio, really, you have to elevate your play to a very high place. Like if just one run by gets by, because he splits his lanes and does such a good job about assaulting as well.
And what was really fascinating there is we actually saw Stim get spotted. He canceled it as soon as the Overlord left, started 2 Cyclones. So he's kind of hidden where the gas was going, HeRoMaRiNE. He wants to hit a Hellion Cyclone pressure, and then he's gone back into Stim. So HeRoMaRiNE really trying to kind of be very agile.
I don't like it. This is like Mr. Bean level spy stuff. It's like...
I mean, how many queens have we got out right now? That's the question. 6? Only 6? It's not a crazy amount. This might be able to do some good damage, but I've got to agree, it might be a little bit overly fancy.
There's a tech lab there. Like, what else are you doing, though? You know, what are we selling?
It's all about this pressure, really. Hopefully he can catch him off guard and get some damage done. There's no transfuses. 1 Banshee, 2 Cyclones, a few Hellions, but without the Hellbats and so many Zerglings out, yeah, good defense by Serral.
So many of these engagements I see from the perspective of, like, it can go disastrously for HeRoMaRiNE. I'm not worried for Serral. It's more of a, like, how bad is this going to get for you? Now, here is the mixture. We're going to see that range attack upgrade for our Zerg player Serral this time around. And Pig, I mean, what's the difference? So you go, is it just literally you're going to focus more on Roaches and Hydras this time around, or Roach Ravager? And
yeah, it's interesting because, you know, with the Ravagers, you used to be able to get the Infestors, Fungal Growth, Metavacs, and focus them down, but Fungal Growth doesn't do a complete route anymore. It just does a very big slow, so you can't really snipe Metavacs with Ravager Infestor anymore. It just doesn't work out. So a lot of players will go Roach Hydra, they'll go up into Vipers, you know, especially against Mech, this is a favored composition, but if you're up against Bio, it gets really interesting because the Roaches fall off very hard when you get to large armies. So often you're looking for a big Roach attack in the mid game. We actually see a ton of Zerglings mixed in with this, which is very unorthodox. Potentially just going to hit some counterattacks while the Roaches try to jump on the third.
Okay, so we'll have to see if it plays out that way. Serral remaining very active with his Zerglings here. This is a little bit more of a cramped map. So the creep spread not quite as... and you can see with the more normal opening, by the way, the creep spread has been held back a little bit here. More comfortable of a third base for HeRoMaRiNE. I do like the depot positioning here, just trying to limit the lanes for when Banelings can get in there. That being said, though, being a little bit sloppy about jumping on top of these lings. Although I don't think actually any SCVs went down, maybe just a few or two.
Maybe like 1. The Cyclones are in a great little position. They're actually landing the Viking a little bit over eager there. That was the brother of the Viking from the Hot Cinematic for sure. It's like 20 Zerglings? Yeah.
You know what? We're looking at this from the angle of why, but maybe that was the bravest Viking ever. He's like, there's lings here. I can't hit from the sky. Going down. What are you doing? Anyways, Metavac's loading up here, and this is that kind of angle of the game that Pig was talking about, where for now, Metavacs and Harass is going to be quite strong. Ravage not a very good counter. You got to look for the Queens to make their connections. This is where HeRoMaRiNE can get some work done, but he's got to be careful because on this map, Acid Plant, you take one bad fight or you're up in the air a little bit too long, and all of a sudden they're at your third.
Yeah. Zerglings opportunistically jump on the Hellions and
Holy
clean up
cow.
that on the left-hand side. That is a lot of Roaches and Ravagers. Cyclones coming to the front. Another siege tank has got a siege up right
He's
now.
maxed.
No combat shields ready just yet. Serral just going to dive on top of this army. A huge +1 Roach Ravager timing.
And here come the SCVs to try to just add some bodies. But the corrosive bios hit not only the tank, but some of the bio as well. A pretty big miscue from HeRoMaRinE. Ling counterattack at that third. It's a 184 supply Zerg against an 80 or 90 supply HeRoMaRinE. He's just dead.
Wow.
He just showed up with a maxed army at 8 minutes and just raffle stomped this young German kid. And HeRoMaRinE is just not having a good time, Pig. This is not what it looks like.
Shades of Stefano here. Just make 400 Roaches and just dive on top of the army. A beautiful engagement here by Serral.
Holy cow.
Smacks him out of that game. A very decisive push. And I mean, this is it. We talk about optimal play. You don't normally think about Zergs playing a big Roach Ravager attack as the standard timing, but Serral is realizing that if he has this range of aggressive options, he can often just catch his opponents trying to cut a corner. In that scenario, you know, Serral doesn't actually have double upgrades. He doesn't have any other tech. Realistically, as a Terran player, you can afford to lift off your third, back off. You can lose like 20 workers and still be in a good spot. Because you've got double upgrades, you've got tanks coming out of 2 factories. But if you don't realize that's coming and you try to defend in the open, we see what happens. The Roaches and Ravagers close the distance too quickly, the biles land on the tanks, and everything falls apart. And just a single moment of weakness there for HeRoMaRinE. Serral snatches a very quick game 2. Suddenly he's 1 game away from entering the semifinals.
That's kind of the vulgar reality, too, of playing a player as good as Serral, where, like, what HeRoMaRinE did was it was just a moment of indecision. It was like the picking up of the Marines at that time, that's all standard. He had 3 or 4 tanks. He had a good wall in at his third. That's all good decision-making, but then you start to realize the map's a little bit smaller. Serral has been ramping up for that attack, which is not completely alien, by the way. We've seen that kind of timing attack before, but as Pig said, there's a very specific thing here, and that is you are the weaker player at that time. If you can hold on, if you can not take too much damage, 6, 7, 8 medevacs, 2 upgrades, 6, 7, 8 tanks, now you are the bully at the playground. But at this time, if you're just down there fighting in the trenches, no, not today. Serral's going to be the winner there.
Yeah, it's so nasty. The way the numbers work out, you know, it can be really, really, I think, hard to understand when players first experience this sort of attack on ladder. But it's like, hey, if you get an extra 30 seconds, the combat shields kick in, another 2 siege tanks are out. Suddenly that Roach Ravager army, not so scary. But he found his timing, he hit it crisply, and now he is 1 game away from going through to the semis up here on Catalyst, spawning in the blue, in the top left-hand side. He is the Finnish phenom. It is Serral.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, we like ourselves a good player, but we also like some controversy, some challenge. And this guy's going to have to play a lot better to give it to him. So please put your hands together for our Terran player on the lower right-hand side. It's HeRoMaRinE. Still some young fans that believe. But I'll tell you what, you were talking about that mental tenacity that he has, with that kind of exasperated sigh after that last game, a head shake. You see that when guys are facing a wall. They're just like, what do I do? This is ridiculous.
And it's funny, you know, last game getting very tricky. He was canceling things, he was starting up other things, he got a few cyclones, and it's kind of funny because I think about myself, or really any Zerg player in those shoes of Serral, be like, oh, there's some cyclones, maybe Hellbats are going to be here. And you think of an overreaction. You think of the Zerg stopping everything else, focusing on the defense. What do we see from Serral? He kind of microed his queens around. He like moved his Zerglings forward, was like, no, you leave now.
Yeah.
HeRoMaRinE was like, I'm out of here, man. He just like, he didn't achieve anything.
Yeah.
You know, Serral's like, here's my fast fourth, here's like my macro, I'm just droning up, adding upgrades, doing what I want to do. And it's the inability to find a disruption in Serral's build-up, which is the real problem for HeRoMaRinE. You always want to throw a Zerg out of their element, out of their comfort zone, and so far we haven't been able to do that at all this series.
No, nobody has. So Serral being good, making it look easy. That's my favorite part about it too, by the way. They keep asking all these guys, they're like, what makes Serral so good? And you get the most lackluster answers. And normally you can just blame the bad pro gamer interview, but it's not even that. They're just like, I don't know, he does everything good.
Yeah.
You're like, you're being lazy, and you watch him play, and you're like, damn, he actually does everything good. Just kind of everything.
Yeah, a lot of people are very excited when he was streaming a few weeks ago. He did a single stream. It was really cool to watch first person. Sometimes the frame rate actually I don't think was high enough to catch him injecting his hatcheries. You'd be like, when did they get injected? It's like, oh, apparently like he zoomed through every base, but you only actually catch one of them on the stream because he's so fast.
One of my favorite parts about that is Noni, actually, a long-time StarCraft 2 Austin guy, just recently had a kid. Congratulations! But he, as a Protoss player, was dissecting those VODs, not even from the angle of, I don't think of like, how do I beat this as a Protoss, but more of a like, what does a great player do to look good and do these things that he's doing? And it was kind of cool to see that level of admiration but just intrigue in what creates a player like Serral.
It really is fascinating because it's so many little set plays that get stitched together and get they're adjusted on the fly. It's so malleable. We talk about, the smarts involved in being a good StarCraft player. It's not just about being a genius. It's about being able to swap between your goals and your ideas and what you're trying to execute seamlessly. You can't get hung up on trying to make one thing work. You need to very quickly adjust and change based on what's happening in the game. And that's one of the things these guys do so well, and Serral seems to have taken to a new level.
A lot of Hellions coming out. I've seen HeRoMaRinE do this before as well. We could see an Armory in a few moments. I feel like you would have maybe already added, but it's a lot of Hellions coming out. We'll have to see. And then there is that Cloak Banshee. Now, Pig, just to give us why? Why always Cloak Banshee? What's so good about it? Why do Terrans keep repeating this?
It's interesting because the Banshee is such a good safety unit. Okay. I guess like there's a lot of Ravager, Zergling, or even sometimes a Ling Bane attack that can hit you. Having those Banshees alive is very good for keeping you safe. Back in the old days, you think of like Bomber or these Terrans, they'd always have a siege tank on the high ground.
Okay.
These days, it's the Banshee because it's more flexible. It can slide in on the edges with good control. You're always going to catch a drone or two. The funny thing in these games is if you look at Serral's map vision, he's always kind of got these overlords hovering on the edges of his bases. He seems to always see the Banshee coming in, pulls the drones away as it enters the base, and the Queens do a bit of damage and the Banshee achieves almost nothing. It's Serral's ability to do that while he's defending kind of Hellions poking around, which is making the Banshees not look so good in this series. But it's definitely something HeRoMaRinE is just comfortable with. He wants to keep working with it. He wants to try and find an angle for those Banshees to pick away at the workers.
We did opt for the Viking first here. It's going to find its first Overlord kill. Or Overload. Anyways, our brains are so
Overload the Overlord.
I then started questioning myself. But that is the only one on this half of the map. Just going to have to go to the other side of the map to find some more. But I can actually just already say I like this opening from HeRoMaRinE a lot more. He's got the double engineering bay, and he's hiding it this time behind.
A lot of roaches out.
A couple of Cyclones coming out as well.
Like 11 roaches. That's like the perfect number to shut down these Cyclones. The scary thing.
Oh,
that's Queens in a Dropperlord. This was a fast lair. That's going to be able to fight against the Banshee. He's morphing an Overseer already as well to join up with that. So it's going to be 3 Queens to get rid of the Banshees. We talked about Banshees as the safety. Well, guess what? You drop a few Queens on their side of the map. It's going to shut that down. There is a siege tank and a couple of bunkers on the way. HeRoMaRinE knows what he's up against, and he is reacting so well.
This is what it takes. Gonna try and shoot down this Overlord as well. Because that is, you pay for him individually at this point in time, so if you can kill that one, then the mobility here's diminished quite a bit.
Yeah.
Now making Ravagers.
One siege tank's out. He's got to keep that safe. He's got to get it sieged somewhere in the back here, and I think he's going to be just fine. HeRoMaRinE with such a good defense so far.
Too, as well. Makes it harder to engage them. The roaches.
Oh, he's got to repair that command center. He's got to repair that command center. It's actually getting dangerously low. Ooh. I wanted to let that orbital finish. If that went down, that would have been nasty.
All right.
Couple of good files.
First bunker looking to get low. Second bunker is also low.
Siege tank, though, dishing out the hurt from the back. The Banshee is going to fall. The first siege tank does go down. The Hellions are still there, roosting the Zerglings as they enter the fray, but that bunker finally is going to go down. And oh my, Serral here, just with so many units, the numbers actually managing to break through. A few biles go down, but the siege tank stands strong. HeRoMaRinE will hold on and defend this attack.
Well, it looks like the wheels have fallen off the wagon. A little bit of cute micro to get a couple of extra shots in there.
Oh, he's got stim as well, yeah. This is actually really scary right now for Serral because he's got no tech. HeRoMaRinE has stim. If he can get a few medevacs out, he can go to dance between the bases, look for some angles. And this is where it gets very awkward as the Zerg player, balancing drones and army units to stay safe and get back in the game. I actually wouldn't mind HeRoMaRinE just pushing straight across the map with these Marines and a couple of medevacs, but he's only got 1 medevac about to pop. So it would be very risky if he dives onto creep.
And now we're in that interesting kind of post-timing attack world where Serral is doing some improvisation here at this point in time. So he's still very good, don't get me wrong, but this is his most vulnerable, especially in the now 3 games we've seen of him so far. So if he was going to fall behind, potentially lose, this would be it, Pig.
You know, I love the burrow follow-up here. You know your opponent's got a delayed third. If you can get burrowed Zerglings under those third bases to delay them, and then also potentially burrowed Banelings in this this kind of scrappy game, you know? HeRoMaRinE isn't going to be pushing across at the normal timings. He's not going to have the same sort of fluency to his creep clearing. So being able to shut that down could be very, very nice here. And already Serral's starting to get some creep through the middle of the map.
Ooh, almost lose the Overseer for free. Queen's going to push this back, and if you look at that production tab, it's mostly Lings and Banelings and kind of those kind of upgrades, which makes a lot of sense, because if you double down and start going into Roaches here, they're very economy dense, and it's kind of hard to keep that up only on 3 bases. And you had already talked about how he's a little bit stagnant on tech, so kind of doubles down on that, gets bad.
The Armory was a little bit delayed here for HeRoMaRinE. Not going to be able to start his 2-2 immediately, but it is still going to be way ahead in those upgrades nonetheless.
Even if you start, and there is the Hydra in there as well, so we do see the full strategy of Serral starting to flush out.
Yep.
No 4th base yet, Pig. Is he just gonna kind of mass up and go for it here?
Serral is taking this central 4th.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, he's taking this kind of one in the middle, so he really wants to control the middle areas of the map and just kind of jump on top of HeRoMaRinE's pushes. This is a much smaller map, though. There's a lot of ledges. Siege tanks is something we've seen HeRoMaRinE have a lot of success with here in the past. So far this game, though, he hasn't really been building a lot of these siege tanks. He's getting the 2nd factory down just now.
Yeah, a couple of Marauders showing up here as well. Really like the cute, you'll exchange a Marine or 2 for some Banelings, especially if you can pick them off just manually as well. So very nicely done by HeRoMaRinE. Supply is pretty even, which is a good story for HeRoMaRinE. And this was one of the maps, by the way, where HeRoMaRinE had a really good tank Marine push right up the middle chasm in towards that 4th base. If you can narrow down that space and really take care of the ramps kind of leading down into it, you can get a good engagement for a Terran player.
Absolutely. I love the way Serral keeps trying to threaten this army. He keeps running at it, forcing HeRoMaRinE to look at this unit, kind of spread them away, stim them, but he's not actually committing unless they come deep on the creep like that. So Serral here, he's really just trying to use his actions, his APM, to try and force HeRoMaRinE to be distracted, to feel a bit of pressure, hopefully miss macro a little bit behind that, and these Banelings starting to burrow.
We haven't had that in a while, have we, actually, now that I think about it? Like a real cheeky couple of Banelings.
I mean, Rogue recently in Korea actually pulled it out against Innovation, and that was the first time I'd seen it in a long time. So
it's been a while.
It's really only this very, very top echelon, and even for these guys, it'll be like 1 in 15 games at most. It's so rare to actually land those burrowed Banelings, but the thing is, you just need 1 good hit, and it's all worth it.
Now I'm just waiting. I'm sorry.
I know, right?
Between 2, he's flag pulling right now, but he's gonna. Both players kind of fighting over these rocks, and that creep spread is starting to become. There we go. He's gonna shoot back, and he sees.
That's very good.
He's like, hang on, that's what you're doing? All right. 3rd base secured for HeRoMaRinE, and we had kind of talked about the tank count not being super high. Well, now that he sees Hydras, the 2nd factory is online, and more tanks are coming out.
Yeah, I mean, Hive is so far away right now. There's no Vipers. It's just going to be, you know, this Hydra Bane, and 2-2 is also very far away for Serral. Oh,
no!
Oh, my.
Not like this!
He's watching. Oh! A big burrowed Baneling at the wall. Not complete here on the 3rd, but I think his bio should get back there pretty quickly, but hey, not before a lot of SCVs go down.
The command center, the orbital. No! It's actually very low. He didn't really repair it. He's going to start to do that now for sure.
Wow. Siege tank actually got sniped there as well that popped out of the factory. 8 workers did go down. And, oh, man.
Not again.
Not sure if these Marines are going to walk
And that could get him back in this, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, it's 2-2 versus 1-1. Every second, he's already buying time for his upgrades to catch up right now. He's going to dodge these Banelings. There we go. This is the scary position. HeRoMaRinE finally starting to get his push set up. He wants to win this game. The tank's moving forward in range of this 4th. It's mostly Hydra Bane. There is not enough units for a flank right now. And this is so scary for Serral. He knows he can't take this fight, but he's got to jump on it.
And here we go. He's going to push for the high ground. The Baneling's getting right past. A lot of bio behind. And a good pushback so far from HeRoMaRinE. He does dip down in supply, but not losing a lot of the bio there means that he's going to be able to kind of heal up here, stim, and push forward. The tank count a little bit shaky, though. Just 3 4 tanks there? I think it's just 4.
Yeah, I mean, he did create a beautiful kill zone in that engagement. There's more and more Banelings coming into this fight. If Serral can defend this, he's got an 80 worker economy, but the siege tank shots are good. The Marine micro is good. Another round of Banelings is about to finish. The Queen's ducking their head underground to hide from the fearsome might of this Terran army. Another wave comes in. This is Serral's last chance to break out.
He's going to fight over the Bioforce on the right side. Does get cleaned up. The Queen's taking these shots pretty well. Transfusion's going down. Serral,
I think he's going to be able to
fly.
break
He's got a
through.
good concave. He kills the tanks. He somehow pushes this back.
Wow.
And HeRoMaRiNE's left just kind of looking at his hands. He's got a bunch of Marines, but against that kind of composition, you need the tanks.
You know, he was ahead in upgrades, but the +2 carapace did kick in during that fight. It helped Serral's units have a lot more durability and just managing to always have another round of Banelings. Every time HeRoMaRiNE stimmed forwards, there were more Banelings just barely ready in time. And he manages to hang on, most importantly, breaking the tech-heavy backbone of that army. You get rid of the siege tanks, and HeRoMaRiNE does not have an answer for the next stage of the game.
I don't have an answer for how he did it. I mean, it looked bad. They were about equal supply. He's going to jump on top of these Marines here, unaided, and he's just going to get another leg up. I mean, it's just a bunch of Marines dying. The space is in trouble. And now caught in the middle is this Bioforce, and here come the Hydras and Banelings, and they're getting more kills as the Bioforce is evacuated to the left side, which means they have to give up on this 4th base. And he's everywhere he goes. There's Serral.
All over this game.
More
flawless play. He actually borrowed those in the face of HeRoMaRiNE. I'm not even sure if HeRoMaRiNE has the scans right now. He's dropping mules frantically trying to collect those minerals, trying to catch up in that army supply, but he is down a lot. Serral squeezing out a base in the top right and the center left. He is up on 6 bases. He's got creep spreading all over the map. The Zerg infestation is taking control of Catalyst.
He's circling around. He's taking multiple angles. HeRoMaRiNE's thinking about harassing, but not today. Serral wants the 3-0, and he's going to get it. Clamping down on this force. Good night, sweet prince. HeRoMaRiNE, there is just too much. Serral, GG, and the 3-0 is completed. Serral is moving on to the semifinals.
The prodigal son of Europe, the Finnish phenom. He is looking so good throughout this tournament.
He needs a cape. They need to put a cloak on him like a cape. Like, this is not enough.
Two-sided lightsaber?
Yes.
Maybe? Yeah.
You could do a backflip. You know what, though? Tip that to HeRoMaRiNE. A good run, good tournament for him. He hit the brick wall. No one's able to beat this guy. He hasn't dropped a single map this tournament so far.
You know, clever, aggressive play there. He played so well. I cannot wait to hear from the man himself. Serral is on stage with Smix.
Thank you very much, guys. Congratulations, Serral. You're moving on to the semifinal with another 3-0, putting you at 10-0. Phenomenal series from you, and I want to jump right into talking about Catalyst because that was by far the most exciting out of the 3 maps. So at one point, it did look like HeRoMaRiNE had the advantage. What do you think it was that you did that helped you close out the win at the very end?
Yeah, I think I was in a pretty bad shape, but after watching the worker graph, I don't think it was as bad as I thought, but I just think that Link Bane is you can get easily comebacks with this unit comp, and the Burrow also helped a bit, as I got one big landmine, but yeah, I just tried to play standard after it, and somehow it worked out.
Yeah, I think we all enjoyed watching that burrowed Baneling do so much damage. But of course, I want to talk about the other side of the bracket because right now it's Mana, Snoot, Special, and a Laser on that side. So what do you think of how that turned out?
I'm thinking that either Laser or Special is going to get through. But I think Mana has been playing very well, so he might also surprise us. And same for Snoot. I think he has improved a lot lately again. He had a bit of a slump, but I think he's doing very good now. And I think any of those can get through, but I'm thinking Special or Laser.
Yeah, indeed. We'll find out if that is the case later today. But of course, I do also want to bring up the match that you're going to be going up against in the semifinal. It's going to be either Lambo or Nurcio. No, Lambo you 3-0'd at WESG, and Nurcio you 3-0'd at Leipzig. So I'm sensing a trend here when it comes to your record against these guys. But because of that, are you feeling pretty confident?
Yeah, I'm always pretty confident in CVC, and obviously I'm a bit worried. I think they both are great players, so it's not going to be that easy. I think the scoreline always lies a bit, so it's going to be hard, but hopefully I can give the trend.
Congratulations again. I always love the respect you have for all the other players. Nathaniel Zapseta, back to you and the boys.
Big thanks to Mix as Serral shows once again his domination here at this World Championship Series circuit as he moves closer and closer to another Grand Finals appearance with those mines, that macro, that control. Roddy, it almost doesn't look fair.
It really doesn't look fair. And I thought that final game after he went for that queen push with the roaches and the ravages, at first it looked really scary because even though HeRoMaRinE identified it pretty early on, I'm like, is he actually still doing this? Like, is it working even though it's scouted? And it got close at one point and I'm like, hey, HeRoMaRinE held it. Looked at the workers, okay, down a little bit, but he's got the massive advantage. He's got triple CC. I was like, I actually really like this for HeRoMaRinE. I don't even think Serral can turn this around, but yeah, I was pretty wrong there backstage, Nate. Serral made some magic happen. It's so funny to see how you can do so much with often so little. It's a little run by here to buy some time, a couple bird bailings here and there to buy a little bit of time, and then suddenly when the big push happens, it's like, well, that's still very tough, despite all the right things you've done in the last few minutes. And then I look at the work count, it's like 80 drones. I'm like, okay, every time this goes by, and even if they just trade, obviously trading is always really good for the Zerg if you have 80 drones. I mean, Serral is just on another level so far, Nate.
Tragically unstoppable. Serral potentially making our tournament too boring by just wrecking everybody. Please, someone stop this guy. We have an updated bracket to show you as we have our first semifinalist of WCS Austin now, as Serral advances 3-0 over HeRoMaRinE. He faces the winner of Lambo and Nurchio, both of whom, as Smixers pointed out, he has recently wrecked. But yeah, on the other side of the bracket, Mana Snoot, a laser special. That's yeah, can anybody stop him? That's the only question I can keep asking.
I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I was talking with Mana yesterday, and I feel like he put it best. He said, you know, if I make it to the finals, at least Serral has to play a best of 7 of practice games with me so I can start preparing for Valencia after I get forward. So, you know, I feel like nobody really feels super confident about this match versus Serral. It's kind of hard.
This reminds me of when we were doing WCS Europe Challenger, where we're like, yeah, tournament, fun, but Serral's so good. It's like, where's the story? He just doesn't lose, guys.
I think maybe the veteran Arthur, maybe Nurchio. If you go through the numbers, I think Nurchio has the best record against Serral of all the players that are still in this tournament, even though Special obviously did well as well in the past. But I think that Arthur, Nurchio, he's like, I mean, he has more experience than I think almost anyone at this phase of the tournament. Last year, he was the runner-up at Austin. Arthur has a really good record against Lambo. That's going to be our next series. We'll talk more about that, and we already mentioned it before. But I believe that if maybe Nurchio can get some momentum going in his ZvT series, even though Serral's obviously the superior player at this point, I do believe that maybe all that experience that Nurchio can bring to the stage could be a pretty big challenge for Serral to face.
Cool, and that's what we're going to talk about next, is get a little bit into our next match. It is going to be that series you're just talking about, Lambo versus Nurchio. Both of these guys, players who've gone to a fair little bit of ZvT. That's been mostly what we've had here on the top side of this bracket. And whoever wins will, of course, have that ZvT again against Serral. So you would say that Nurchio's got a better shot at beating Serral than Lambo?
Yes, because I have the feeling that even though Lambo's a very confident young man in general, he looks at Serral, he's like, yeah, not today, not yet, you know, no matter how much work I've put in, it feels like they aren't ready yet. But I think Nurchio is a little nonchalant in a way, and I think that actually could really help him, but we shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves. This should be a really fun series, especially because of that scoreline we mentioned before, where Lambo, once upon a time, 3 years ago, he's like, first time against Nurchio, I win in a go for StarCraft 2, and then Nurchio won 15 series in a row. He's like, yeah, that was really cute, but never do that again.
Brutal.
Yeah, this is obviously the biggest series they've played against each other here, quarterfinals, Austin, so it's fun.
Arguably, this is still the best Lambo that we've seen. I mean, he's making the deepest run that he has ever in a WCS Circuit event, so I feel like this is maybe his best opportunity to do that kind of upset versus Nurchio and finally turn that scoreline back around.
All right, well, let's see if Lambo can upset Nurchio, and then let's see if anybody left in this tournament can upset Serral. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the World Championship Series. We'll be right back after this short break.
Dad, I'm getting